Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. So today we're taking a look at one of the most requested videos for me to take a look at, and that is the SCP video on the Scarlet King. Exploring the SCP Foundation, the Scarlet King. So this is the Exploring Series version of his video. This is one that a lot of people requested. As you can see, we're doing it live here. For my YouTube members, so if you would like to come join in the discussions as we're doing these live streams, just click the join button down below and you can take a look at the YouTube membership tiers. As always, there will be links to the original video here without my commentary and reaction, so if you want to watch it without me, stopping, pausing, and talking, feel free to check that out and do so. And the Exploring Series channel, so you can check out all their content. But we're just going to dive right into this here, because I know this is one that people have been wanting me to get into. So, bada boom, bada bing.
Scarlet King. Extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional threats border on the commonplace in the SCP universe. And the SCP Foundation spends a great amount of time, effort, and resources containing, or at least preventing, these threats from wiping out our existence.
This picture right here looks very Elden Ring-ish. I'm getting very... This looks like it would be a boss in a FromSoft game. That's some pretty cool artwork.
There are entities within the SCP universe that we would liken to gods. Some of them contained by the Foundation, and some of them not. But one of the most mysterious and potentially world-threatening is the Scarlet King.
How could you contain a god? And what would it take to contain a god? You know what I mean? Like, that would be some pretty insane measures. And I feel like it would be a scenario where they would have to be willing to be contained, to truly be contained, if they are in fact a god. Or at least, a creature that would be considered godlike. But anyway, I digress.
The Scarlet King is one of the older concepts on the SCP Wiki, but is one largely wrapped up in an air of mystery, with hints of his true nature spread across the site. Due to the lack of canon within the SCP universe, ultimately the Scarlet King is whatever you believe him to be, but I'll go over some of the myths and perspectives related to this eldritch figure.
I feel like that's a lot of what the Scarlet King, or not just the Scarlet King, I feel like that's just, in general, that's kind of a running theme in the SCP universe, is a lot of it is left up to interpretation, which I really like. That's one of the things that intrigues me so much about the Dark Souls games, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, etc., is that there's a certain amount of lore that is like given to you, and then the rest is kind of left vague and open to interpretation. And I really think that's what brings a lot of people to these like lore groups, stories, etc., stuff like the SCP, is because they want to learn more, and as they find that things are kind of left open to interpretation, they like to discuss their interpretations of things and kind of bounce things around, et cetera, et cetera. So, I don't really know much of the Scarlet King. I don't think he's even really been mentioned much. I think he might have referenced him once in one of the previous videos that I watched. I think maybe it was in the video about the Sarkics, or maybe it was the Davites. But yeah, so far going through, they haven't really mentioned anything else about the Scarlet King from anything I've watched. So, yeah.
To begin with, we have to go back to where it started, with SCP-231. On the surface, SCP-231 is a young girl, designated 231-7, who is pregnant with some sort of entity.
Okay.
Her and 6 other young girls were found in a police raid on an organization that called itself the Children of the Scarlet King.
Interesting.
Each of the girls were pregnant, and 24 hours after the raid, one of the girls went into labor, giving birth to something unknown, which caused hundreds of casualties. The Foundation took over, containing the other 6
Good
girls,
Lord.
but despite their best efforts, each of them expelled increasingly dangerous and horrific entities, the girls dying in the process. Now, only SCP-231-7 remains, and it's the Foundation's belief that if she ever gives birth to whatever's inside of her, it would result in the end of the world. Thus, they instituted daily administrations of Procedure 110 Montauk, believed to be one of the most horrific and cruel processes the Foundation has ever concocted. What it actually is largely a complete mystery, but there are some clues in the documentation.
So I guess the question that I would have to ask is, and it's a pretty cruel question, but why wouldn't they just kill her? Like, is it because she's protected in some way by whatever is inside of her? Is it keeping her alive, immortal, whatever? They're just not able to kill her? Because if her giving birth to whatever is going to end the world and create some kind of other godly entity that's going to destroy everything, why not just kill her so that it can't be born? Unless that, of course, would lead to it being birthed in some way. You know, who knows? I don't know. But I guess it's a question that would have to be asked. You know what I mean? They tried that another girl monster came out anyways. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, that would answer that question then, yeah. SCP-2845 is an example of a contained god. We will get there eventually. Gotcha. Okay.
The procedure is performed only by D-class personnel, but specifically non-violent criminals to avoid any of them accidentally killing 231-7. The girl has to be awake and aware of the procedure, and other personnel assigned to the project are routinely swapped out due to the psychological stress, with many of them given memory-wiping amnestics to forget what they've witnessed.
Nice.
Additionally, 231-7's memory is also routinely wiped in order to prevent her from becoming accustomed to the procedure, as it seems it must be continually horrifying in order to prevent labor.
Interesting.
A great amount of discussion has gone on about Procedure 110 Montauk, but ultimately it's left up to your darkest imagination.
Couldn't they also just, like, cryogenically freeze her some way? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't just freezing her in ice keep it still and just, like, throw her in a freezer somewhere and just lock her away and contain her that way? You know, like, preventing the thing from being able to be born that way? I don't know. I'm sure a lot of these things have probably been talked about and asked and have been answered, but I don't know. You would just think they would probably be able to find a way to lock it up without having to keep redoing this procedure. I think they tried that too? Okay. Because you would think that a lot of these things that I'm sure that would go through my mind and ask, they must have gone through and have attempted with maybe some of the other girls, and it didn't work out. The only thing that works is supposedly this horrifying procedure. Okay.
A popular tale, Fear Alone, describes a researcher newly transferred to SCP-231 and discovers that Procedure 110 Montauk is not some brutal action inflicted on a child, but is instead a D-class reading a bedtime story to a young girl.
Interesting.
The researcher is perplexed, but another doctor reveals that they had carried out horrible actions on the other girls, but it ultimately failed. They instead realized that more important than doing the actions was people believing the actions were being done. The old gods, in this case the Scarlet King, cannot see our reality the same way that we can, so they cannot witness the actions done to SCP-231, but the Scarlet King can sense fear. If enough people believe that Procedure 110 Montauk is some monstrous crime done to a child, the fear carried by those people will satiate the Scarlet King.
Gotcha. Okay.
Again, there's no canon, so you can accept this perspective or not. Another tale, New Job, gives a slightly different perspective on 231 and their offspring. This tale describes how, when the Foundation first secured the pregnant girls, they also recovered some notebooks written by the priests of the cult of the Scarlet King. These writings made it clear that if all 7 girls gave birth, some sort of apocalypse would occur, presumably involving the Scarlet King. Additionally, the writings also contain detailed instructions on how to carry out Procedure 110 Montauk, which is the only way to prevent a birth. The Foundation found this suspiciously convenient, as a cult hell-bent on bringing about this apocalypse would have no reason to possess a ritual to prevent it.
Right. Yeah, why, you know, if you're trying to create, you know, some kind of ritual to bring about a god that's going to destroy or take over the world, why would you then have a procedure to stop it? Yeah, that's kind of strange. That's definitely a thinker question there.
Further research on the Foundation's part led them to believe that these girls were connected to the 7 brides of the Scarlet King, and
Okay.
that the seventh girl was not like the rest. Rather than giving birth to monsters like the other brides, the seventh gave birth to heroes opposed to the king.
Oh.
The O5 Council ultimately decided to accept this belief and allowed SCP-231-7 to give.
So the seventh woman is almost kind of like a failsafe to where the other six would give birth to the creatures or whatever, but maybe the seventh woman is some kind of failsafe who could give birth to heroes who could have powers or abilities to combat these other things as a way of keeping the Scarlet King under control in some way, so that this cult might be able to control the Scarlet King. So I don't know. That would be interesting.
Decided to accept this belief and allowed SCP-231-7 to give birth. The result was SCP-999. SCP-999 can generally be considered one of the nicest and most benevolent of these sentient SCPs, an amorphous mass of gelatinous slime that playfully bounces around to give hugs to people, especially those that are unhappy or hurt.
So a little slug jello man's gonna kill the a giant eldritch demon god that can destroy the universe. Okay, you know.
Contact with SCP-999 causes an immediate euphoria capable of curing even the most crippling depression. And SCP-999 will also risk itself to protect or rescue others. The tale explains that SCP-999 is the only entity capable of overthrowing the Scarlet King.
Interesting.
Although it is currently only a child and will need time to grow to its full strength. The myth of Procedure 110 Montauk is perpetuated in order to fool the cult of the Scarlet King into thinking the Foundation is playing into their hands. But eventually, a battle will commence between 999 and the Scarlet King. If you believe this tale, at least. But these SCPs and tales don't really give us a good idea of what the Scarlet King is.
Right.
For a decent perspective, we can look at the tale titled Dust and Blood. The story speaks of the earliest times when the Elder Gods were first formed out of the darkness. One of these was named Karak, and he differed from the others by being cursed with awareness of his existence, and existence was pain. Angered by this awareness of pain, Karak decided that it would be better if he didn't exist, and more so, if nothing existed. Karak began feeding on the other gods, growing greater and stronger as he consumed them, but so did his pain and hate grow stronger as well.
Interesting.
In time, Karak consumed or subjugated all the Elder Gods that didn't flee from him, and he became king of the darkness below. The area beyond his kingdom, the worlds of creation, went to war with Karak and his servants, which still continues to this day. Karak took a wife, becoming known as the Scarlet King in the process, and had 7 daughters with her. These 7 daughters became his 7 brides, and he placed 7 seals on them so that they would never die. These brides had children of their own, monstrous creations that served the Scarlet King. The tale implies that SCP-682, one of the most dangerous and fearsome entities held by the Foundation, is a child of the 4th bride.
Interesting.
Differing from the rest, however, the 7th bride was not utterly broken by the Scarlet King.
I don't know. In some ways, I kind of see that, like, there's a little contradictory stuff going on here, because, like, the idea of, you know, wanting to destroy everything, but you're then taking wives and birthing children, you know, so you're creating more things, more life, even though you want to destroy all life and not exist anymore. But I guess it also would lend to you being able to, you know, creating these other beings of power so they could go out and serve you in your cause. You know what I mean? I don't know. It just seems a little strange that you would want to create things to destroy things. And you're like, the idea, the kind of irony of, like, you're wanting to destroy everything, but in doing so, you're creating life in order to destroy more life. And in doing so, you're still creating more life. You know what I mean? I don't know. Kind of interesting. So he took 7 wives, put seals on them so they couldn't be killed, and then had, 7 children, or at least 6 children, and I guess maybe the 7th one, there's some kind of issue going on with them. Beings of Destruction specifically, right.
Differing from the rest, however, the seventh bride was not utterly broken by the Scarlet King, and instead gave birth to heroes that walked on 2 legs and fought to overthrow the Scarlet King. Ultimately, however, the Scarlet King and his servants have continued their conquests, defeating any challengers, and will presumably one day destroy all of creation. When We Came Home, written by the same author as Dust and Blood, tells of the final battle against the Scarlet King, when 7 warriors carrying 7 sacred spears managed to kill the king and cast his body back into the abyss, restoring creation in the process.
That'd be pretty dope to read. I might look at that up and read that and maybe do a follow-up video on that. That sounds like a pretty fascinating story.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention SCP-231-7, an entity that many perceive to be at the very least related to the Scarlet King. The author of the skip, Dr. Clef, has said that it was not written to be related to the Scarlet King, merely reminiscent of it and SCP-231, but it's open enough for people to choose to believe what they wish. SCP-231-7 is a massive, primeval entity located in an alternate universe, and known to be a devourer of worlds. This entity was a grave threat, and was finally captured by an order of mystics, who crafted 7 chains from the bones and sinews of the Devourer's 7th bride. 6 of these chains are currently broken, with the 7th likely to break within the next few decades. The Foundation has no means of fixing the chains, and no means of preventing the Devourer from entering our world once freed.
Well, that would not be
A
bueno.
fake ritual was created by the Foundation leadership in order to suppress fears that they cannot contain the entity. This ritual...
I think the idea is that the Mortal Realms resisted that he was forced to change his plan. Gotcha. I mean, that makes sense. I'm just talking about that. I think it's like, it's an irony that he's wanting to destroy all life, but in doing so, he's having to create more life in order to destroy more life. And so it's like, it's going to be like a cycle. Like, as he's creating more life to destroy more life, other things are going to rise up against that, and so he's going to have to keep creating more things to destroy more things. You know what I mean? So in so wanting to destroy more stuff, he has to create more stuff to destroy more stuff, and then he's going to have to create more. It's creating like a cycle of life and death, essentially.
Incorporates various fears. A fake ritual was created by the Foundation leadership in order to suppress fears that they cannot contain the entity. This ritual incorporates various religious elements as well as phrases related to the Scarlet King. As this ritual is fabricated, there's no real evidence that 231-7 has any connection to the Scarlet King, but a popular theory connects the 7 chains to the 7 girls from SCP-231.
Yeah, the 7 wives.
And when the 7th girl gives birth, the final chain will be broken.
That would make sense.
Finally,
That would make sense,
Finally, there is Tufto's proposal for SCP-001, titled The Scarlet King. The proposal describes the King as a largely unknown entity that exists in a number of dimensions simultaneously, but for whatever reason is unable to enter the Prime Dimension, that is, our dimension.
So he's a Chaos God. We're getting into 40k territory again. Everything leads back to 40k, I'm telling you.
Reason is unable to enter the Prime Dimension, that is, our dimension. The Foundation believes that the Scarlet King has been attempting to break into our dimension for hundreds of years, and if it ever succeeds, will cause a drastic alteration of reality or eradication of human life. Despite this threat, however, the Scarlet King is given the object class of safe, and the description states that containment is unnecessary. The reason for this, of course, forms the bulk of the proposal, and is a bit more complicated than an average skip. The proposal also mentions SCP-231-7, and that high-ranking personnel are to be informed that it is in fact the Scarlet King, although the truth of that statement is unknown and likely dubious. The remainder of the proposal consists of a large number of lengthy documents and interviews, and I won't take up time going through them individually. To summarize, the proposal is focused around Dr. Robert Montauk, the project lead on SCP-231, 231-7, and the Scarlet King. Montauk has been working on studying the Scarlet King for decades, and has come no closer to truly understanding what it is. Montauk begins interviewing the leader of the cult that the SCP-231 girls come from, who turns out to be a fairly cryptic individual. One notable thing he mentions, however, is that there are 3 laws which must be understood in order to understand the Scarlet King. The law of blood, the law of concrete, and the law of howling.
Law of concrete, huh?
The law of blood was enacted by the Scarlet King, and it represents his rule, filled with hatred, cruelty, and an iron will. It is the old way of things, armies of slaves, blood rights, and chaos amidst order. The law of concrete is the inverse, modern civilization, where everything must be studied and understood so that it can be described, categorized, and filed away. The law of howling is the tension and clashing between these two opposites, and it is here that the Scarlet King takes form. The Scarlet King is ultimately an idea, but the tension between the pre-modern and the modern, the difference between the accepted and the understood, is what allows him to exist.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the idea of him creating clashing laws that will inevitably cause sides, eventually there'll be sides that will have, beliefs based on either of those 2 laws. Factions will be formed, and then wars and conflict will end up happening. So it's fascinating, the idea that he's creating opposing views in order for them to cause conflict, and that conflict potentially, I guess, would be what gives him his power in his life. So that is kind of a fascinating idea and view. Creating opposing things in order to give himself power, and that's what his existence is, and that's what he feeds off of. Huh.
Between the accepted and the understood is what allows him to exist. Perhaps most interestingly is that the SCP Foundation itself is what caused this to happen, as the Foundation's drive to understand and categorize everything, in this case the Scarlet King, created the tension between what was previously just accepted, and so they created the Scarlet King.
Yeah, also came first, Scarlet King under laws. See, and that's some of the stuff that I love about this stuff too, is like it's a lot of these tales are like the observer effect things, where it's like, did this happen before you gave like thought to this? What was the thought or the idea of looking at this, manifesting it and creating it and making it real? The same thing with I think it was SCP-001 in that video. They're one of the ideas that, they found a book, and that, they kind of had that fourth wall break of, the authors are just creating the universe that the SCP live in, but if they didn't see the book, would what came first? Yeah, if they hadn't seen the book and read it, would that universe had ever really been created? Kind of a thing. I don't remember, but like, yeah, I like the ideas of that, of like, you're kind of creating your own reality and creating those own things as you go along. You're giving life to these things by just looking at them and observing them. So I find stuff like that just fascinating.
Between what was previously just accepted, and so they created the Scarlet King. If SCP-231-7 gave birth, it would allow the Scarlet King to enter our dimension, and so Procedure 110 Montauk exists. Interestingly, the specifics of the procedure don't actually matter, so much as the fact that the procedure was created not out of scientific understanding, but out of hate and rage from Dr. Montauk.
Yeah, then like, that is also interesting too. So like, the idea of you created the Scarlet King through those ideas, and then the way to prevent the Scarlet King from entering your world is through a procedure that it doesn't matter, that it doesn't matter what the procedure is. It just matters that you do something. The act of just doing something prevents the Scarlet King from entering our universe. It's kind of, I guess, the same idea for some of the Chaos Gods and Warhammer. It's, like killing and murdering. Everyone does that. That happens all the time. It's the act of like the ritual and the intent, the intensity behind it. That's what really gets their intention, kind of a thing. And it feels kind of similar to that here. So, love the allusions to the King in Yellow. Yeah, procedure only works because Dr. Montauk called it out of hate for the Scarlet King. He wanted to hurt him by hurting. Right, exactly. So I don't know. I find a lot of that stuff interesting. The whole, you are really kind of creating your own reality by realizing these things. You know what I mean? I find stuff like that fascinating.
Dr. Montauk believed that the Scarlet King had taken his brother from him, and so he devised the procedure specifically to hurt the king. And that's why it works, because it follows the law of blood and not the law of concrete.
Mm-hmm.
The lessening of tension between the two prevents 231-7 from giving birth, and so the SCP Foundation has decided to change the classification of the Scarlet King to safe, and attempt to not worry as much about understanding and classifying the entity.
I think it also, the idea of also not researching it further and wanting to understand it further also then prevents the Scarlet King, from getting more power. You know what I mean? Because now you're not giving it more intention. Again, kind of the same thing with the Chaos Gods. Ignorance is bliss. By not knowing about them and not doing anything, you're not giving them credence, so it weakens them. I feel like it's kind of a similar thing here. By not, acknowledging the Scarlet King, you're weakening him. Which, by the way, this artwork is dope. This is pretty sick looking artwork, man.
In a twist on standard operating procedures, not understanding this anomaly is actually safer than understanding
right.
it. Ultimately, however, Dr. Montauk leaves the Foundation and joins the cult of the Scarlet King, as he saw the Foundation as a group of hollow men lacking a path, and he would rather take the wrong path than no path at all.
That's the favorite part about this 001 proposal. The Foundation is like, literally, let's just forget any of this ever happened and go home. Right. Yeah, it's the whole idea of ignorance is bliss kind of scenario. The less you know, the better. Which for me would be terrible. I should not lead the SCP because I would want to know everything about everything and I would destroy the universe. It's what would happen. Treat it like it's economy if you ignore the problem. Right, exactly.
If this proposal sounds complicated, that's because, well, it is. And it's likely I've misinterpreted some part of it, so I suggest reading it for yourself. So, none of this really explains what the Scarlet King looks like, or
True.
how he'll devour our world.
Well, I feel like it's also one of those things where it's probably up to the eye of the beholder. The sense of Scarlet King seems to be based on the different people's perceptions of reality. The way the Scarlet King looks is probably going to be left up to whoever is observing the Scarlet King. It probably doesn't necessarily have one form. It's kind of like Gozer the Gozerian from Ghostbusters. You give it form as the ritual, as he enters the world, you give him form. You create the vessel of your destroyer, kind of a situation. The Vulcan has a video on the SCP-01 Scarlet King proposal. That's one of his best videos, and I highly recommend it. It's one of his best, and it really sheds light on the subject. Okay, we can take a look at that. Oh crap, I didn't realize I said it's his best twice.
Dimension. But that's part of the point. The mystery and ambiguity of a terrible godlike entity goes back to Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos.
Right.
And the Scarlet King is no different. Whether you think the Scarlet King is a human-like crimson entity, a massive whale, or something less tangible like an idea, the point remains that the Scarlet King is something deeply opposed to our current existence.
Again, this artwork is sick, man. There's a lot of really cool artwork in like the SCP, these SCP videos. I don't know if it's just this is like actual SCP artwork that the community's put out there, or if this is just stuff the Exploring series is finding, but this is a lot of cool shit. Like I dig this artwork. This looks like some kind of crazy kaiju that Godzilla should fight. Okay, so that's the end of the video here. Let's see. 7 seals, 7 rings, 7 brides for the Scarlet King. That sounds like the opening of some kind of children's, you know, rhyme. They gather around the natal bed, the foolish and the wise. They fear the child yet to be born, whose voice shall rend the skies. The faithful watch the forest for the coming of the king. Their lanterns bright, they wait at night for the new world he shall bring. Hidden text from the SCP-231 report. Alright. Oh, he's got a lot. Okay. Alright, there we go. Man's got a lot of support going on here on the Patreon. Go over there and check out his stuff. So, I mean, yeah, that is his video on the Scarlet King. And, very, very interesting, very fascinating. The different, I guess, kind of iterations or versions of the Scarlet King and how it's left up to interpretation. I really like the idea of, you know, like I said, the observer effect kind of situation where the Scarlet King didn't exist until the members of the SCP created it. And the idea that, you know, not giving it more credence, not giving it more attention is, and that procedure of, you know, the Montauk procedure is a situation where they're like, the fact, it doesn't matter what they do, just the fact that they're doing something is what's preventing the Scarlet King from entering our universe, you know? Again, that leading into the idea of, you know, we are creating our own reality. You know, we really have that power and we're creating our own reality, and it's just up to the person who's doing it at the time, you know, their beliefs and things like that. I don't know. I just find that stuff very fascinating. Yeah, this is more of a primer to the lore of the Scarlet King. It's 50-50. So yeah. Okay, so I mean, there's definitely going to be some follow-up videos then from this one for the Scarlet King. I may actually go through and read some of the various lores, but yeah, this going through some of Volgan's stuff, which people have very much recommended me to look at some of Volgan's videos, and I definitely will at some point in time get into a lot of his videos. I'm just kind of following along this playlist that my buddy Kelshman here has recommended me. He's kind of been my guide through the SCP so far. So we're just kind of looking through these, and eventually we will expand out once I've gotten kind of a base. So we definitely plan on doing those, but very interesting, very fascinating stuff. I like it. I like a lot of these stories. The Scarlet King is very interesting. I'm looking forward to diving deeper into this some more. But thank you guys for hanging out and watching the video. That's going to do it for this one. As always, links will be down below in the description for the original video without my commentary into the Exploring series channel. As you can see, again, we're doing this live. So if you want to come and join in the discussions, click the join button down below and see if any of the YouTube membership tiers have any interest to you. Regardless of that, if you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and it helps the channel grow. I greatly appreciate it, and I greatly appreciate you just taking the time to come and hang out and watch this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys on the next one.